Hello and welcome to another Aulphy 1.5 tutorial. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at how to take videos on your Aulphy and what all of those settings mean. So let's jump right in and power up the camera. Usually the camera will default straight into its video mode, but you may need to go in and change the settings. You can do that from the main menu and selecting the video and photo mode. Now we're going to go and have a look at what all of the settings mean. If you press the down arrow, you'll see a shortcut menu. First option, we've got resolution. In the resolution window, you'll see all of the different resolutions that your camera can shoot in, from 1080p down to VGA and all the way up to 4K. My personal preference here is to go ahead and stick to using the 1080p 60, as this will give a great balance between slow motion and video quality. The next option is loop recording. This essentially allows us to choose how often the camera will create a new file in order to write over the original existing files. Now I wouldn't recommend this unless you were using the camera for evidential use, as once the memory card is filled, it will write over existing files. So for example, if you choose the 3-minute option, the camera will continuously record but in 3-minute sections. Once the memory card has completely filled, the camera will erase the first 3-minute file in order to make room for the next one, and so on and so on. This next option is a great feature of the Aulphy 1.5, dual capture. What we can do here is choose how often we want the camera to take a photo at the same resolution of the video as we're recording. Rotate is a nice and simple option, which flips the whole screen and settings in order for you to use the camera upside down. The next option is field of view, or FOV for short. In this menu, you can select how wide you want your shot to be. One thing to remember though is the narrower the shot, the less of the sensors used, and therefore your camera has to compensate by introducing grain in order to brighten up the image. This next setting is HDR, or high dynamic range. This allows us to introduce more detail in the highlights and the shadows. Here we find one of Aulphy 1.5's killer features, the gyro sensor. This essentially stabilizes our image using a slight digital crop and information from its onboard accelerometer. Bear in mind that both this and the HDR mode will use more processing power and therefore will use more battery life. The audio option is a simple one. It essentially allows you to choose whether or not you want your camera to capture audio as well as video. The next setting is audio sensitivity and allows you to choose how sensitive your Aulphy's microphone is. The higher the number, the more sensitive. Timestamp is great for evidential use and stamps the current date and time onto the image. The video file format option allows you to choose between MP4 and MOV file formats. The bitrate option allows you to choose how fast your camera can write to its memory card. The advantage here is that the faster it writes to the card, the least compression, therefore giving you the optimum image quality. Now the disadvantage is that you will need a high performance memory card. Low resolution file mode automatically creates a low res file alongside the full res version to give you faster data transfer speeds when it comes to transferring your files via Wi-Fi using the Aulphy smartphone app. Power on record is a great way of sharing your camera with your friends and not having to teach them how to use it. Essentially, as soon as the camera turns on, it will start recording. Sharpness gives you control over how much digital sharpness the camera uses to enhance the image. The best option here would probably be to stick with the medium unless you're a professional user. White balance gives you control of the color temperature read by the camera. We would recommend for most users to stick to using auto mode unless they are professional. Color is another professional user setting. Most users should stick to using the standard color profile, but we may find that professional users prefer to use the flat profile and color grade during post-production and editing. EV, or exposure value, allows you to help the camera understand the environment that you're using it in. For example, if you increase the exposure value, you're telling the camera that you're in a darker environment and you want it to let more light in. The opposite applies to negative exposure value. The metering modes allow you to help the camera understand how to read a scene. Essentially what this does is tells the camera to look at certain areas of the image when looking for its exposure value. For example, If you were trying to shoot out of a car window from inside where some of the car is in shot, using average will take an average of that whole scene and will probably lead to a bit dark inside the car and very bright outside the car. But if you're looking just to get the road in the shot and have that as your main focus and bright area, what you want to do is tell the camera to use spot metering or center metering. Now, spot metering is great because it will look at just the very middle point of that image in order to understand that that's what you want to be exposed for correctly. So this way, the inside of the car would be dark, but that's okay because you're trying to get the track or the road that's outside perfectly exposed for. The very last setting is distortion correction. Now, your Alfie has a fisheye lens by nature. This is perfect for action cameras as it creates that super immersive point of view style of shot. Some users prefer a flat horizon rather than that fisheye look. If that's what you're going for, use distortion correction and it will tweak those edges back to making perfectly straight lines and horizons. We're now back to resolution. Simply press the menu button to come back out. From video mode, you've got direct access to turn the Wi-Fi on by pressing the up settings arrow. Now we've got a full video on how to connect to Wi-Fi, so we'll turn this off by pressing the button again. And that's all there is to it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to set your camera up for taking the perfect videos.